We're going to be talking about this 1965 Bally Bowler. Now, Bally made these bowlers in 63, 64, 65, 66, and 69. And it's basically all the same model with some minor modifications. So the big question is why do you care about this bowler? What makes this bowler better than, say, other ball bowlers? Well, actually this bowler is pretty close to a bowl-a-rama. The United 1960 bowl-a-rama is considered the best of the ball bowlers because it has a pin. It's on a chain system with a magnet on the bottom that lifts the pin up and out of the way. Well, the Bally Bowler does something very similar, but in a slightly different mechanical manner. So instead of using a hard pin like a bowl-a-rama, this is a bowl-a-rama pin, the Bally Bowler uses a soft pin. You can see I can squeeze it, I can bend it. It's very, very soft. And what's the advantage over this hard pin? Well, the problem with these hard bowl-a-rama pins is they'd like to break, especially right here at the neck. And the pins are very expensive at about $150 each, if you can find them. Okay? These pins are pretty much indestructible. Now, the bowl-a-rama is on a chain that lifts up with the magnet on the bottom. These are just hollow pins, but they're reciprocating, meaning that as you hit one pin, it knocks the others. And you see how they can move around in all different directions, so that when you hit it, it hits other pins that cause other pins to hit those pins, which knock down other pins. So it's a true contact bowler. So now you ask, why is a true contact bowler better than a regular ball bowler? Well, regular ball bowlers use pins like this, and they're just half pins. You can see in the back they're hollow. And they're called flyaways, meaning that when the ball rolls on the lane, it usually hits a switch, which then pulls a relay in that actually retracts this pin. And they call it flyaway because they fly back and they fly straight up. But the movement of this pin is just an optical illusion. It doesn't touch any other pins or cause any other pins to go up. On the contrary, this game, when you hit a pin, this pin will hit other pins, causing others to go up, like this. Okay? So that's the difference, that this is a real contact bowler. And that's what this bowler shares with the bowl-a-rama, because the same thing with the bowl-a-rama, as the pin flies up, it hits other pins. And that's why people like the bowl-a-rama. So this, in the bowl-a-rama, is a big advantage over, say, a game with the flyaway pin. There's some other differences too. Now, another big difference is the lane width. Because of the pin style, the lane is 23 inches wide. This is wider than a standard ball bowler width, which is generally an 18-inch lane. The only exception is, again, bowl-a-rama, but it gives more realistic bowling. Now, a big advantage to the Bally-style reciprocating pin bowlers over, say, bowl-a-rama is the general size of the game. If anybody's ever seen a bowl-a-rama, it is freaking huge. At 1,200 pounds, it is a monster. It's really tall. It has very advanced mechanisms, have to do with the pin retraction. The thing is just huge. A normal ball bowler, this being what I would call more normalish in weight and size, is like this. This is a more manageable size, even though it weighs in at 700 to 800 pounds. But it's still a good 400 to 500 to 600 pounds less than a bowl-a-rama. So we've talked about the advantages of the Bally reciprocating bowler over, say, the bowl-a-rama and over, say, a conventional ball bowler. What are some of the disadvantages? Well, the one big disadvantage is the actual size of the pin area. This is a 16-foot bowler, meaning from tip to toe, it's 16 foot 3 inches. But the key here is, if you measure it from where the player stands all the way to the head pin, it's 11 feet. Now, on a conventional, say, Chicago coin ball bowler, it's 12.5 feet. So you have another 1.5 foot of lane in the same 16-foot footprint. And the reason for that is that the pins are spaced wider apart on this style of bowler because, again, the pins hit each other as they go up. So they can't be all congregated together in a mass. Now, what about the bowling itself? It's a little different than a standard ball bowler because, much like a bowl-a-rama, there are what's known as impossible spares. kind of like real bowling is. Now, I know on the Chicago Coins bowlers with the lane switches and the flyaway pins, you can cheat. That is, if you have a 7-10 split, a lot of times if you hit the switches just right, it'll compensate for that and give you the split. But that's not real bowling. If you've ever been to a real bowling alley, there's been professional bowlers that'll go a lifetime without ever bowling a 7-10 split. It's pretty much an impossible shot. Well, on this game too, it's an impossible shot. Because if you have all of the pins up, for example, these two are going to reciprocate and hit each other and knock it down, but you're not going to be able to get the 7 and the 10. And there's other similar what's known as impossible spares to pick up. Sorry, but it's just like real bowling. So how does the game play? Well, let's fire her up and I'll show you. Put a credit on it. Uses standard 4.5-inch balls. And you notice that the ball reciprocating motor that returns the ball to the player, it's not running all the time. That's because it only wants the player to have one ball at a time. It keeps them in there and turns the motor off as the bowler reaches the top of the tray. But here we go. Strike. It's a little different than a standard ball bowler, but it's different in a very good way. Now I should be able to pick this spare up. I left one pin standing. Oh! Missed it. So I got a score of 149. Had a few strikes and a few spares. Not a bad score. I would say that's pretty typical, though I bowled with my neighbor last night and he got 218 and kicked my butt. But now, are the scores lower on this game than they are on, say, a regular ball bowler, you know, that uses lane switch and flyaway pins? Yeah, maybe a little lower. But again, it's more realistic. So here's inside the back box, and you can see all the score reels, the frame unit, and the coin unit, and the player unit. It's not as nearly as complicated as, say, a bowl-a-rama. Now, if you look at the back of the game, the rear door opens down, and this is the main mech panel. It's not everything, but it's most of the steppers, the director unit, and most of the relays and score motor used in the game. The pin deck lifts up to expose all the mechanisms for the pins. It's pretty easy to service. Everything's pretty straightforward, easy to get to. Coin box at the front of the unit is a nice wooden thing. It's fairly large. Usually there's a multi-denominational coin mech in here, meaning that you can put nickels, dimes, or quarters in here. I'm missing the mech. I'm trying to locate one. Looks like I can use one from maybe a Seaberg jukebox or something, but I'm working on that. Standard 4.5-inch balls. Nothing weird or different about that. And again, the player is only handed one ball at a time. But if for some reason you don't get a ball, there's a button on the front of the coin door that you can press that'll give you another. So this is my 1965 Bally Bowler. If you were ever considering getting a bowl-a-rama, I highly suggest you look into this bowler alternatively. It's generally going to be less expensive. It's also going to probably require less maintenance. It's less in physical size, and it's just as much fun. Believe me, I own both of them, and I know all about the bowl-a-rama, and I'm telling you that this is a great game. So I'm going to play another game.